Good morning. It's Wednesday, and we're studying Psalm 29 together. Last week, I was on a phone call with Bishop Todd Hunter, who is a mentor of mine, and I was on a Zoom call with about 25, 30 other pastors and priests spread out over the United States. And we were talking about this, the pandemic, and our responses as pastors, as leaders. And he was giving us some sage advice. He said, "There's three words that I have for you: go small, go slow, and go big." And then he explained it. He said, small. He said, in a professional athlete, in those biggest moments, the golfer coming down the last few holes of the U.S. Open with the lead. He says they're not thinking the biggest thoughts about winning the tournament or the money or the fame. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the very smallest things. The rest of it's out of their control. They think about the things that they can control: their grip, their swing plane, right? They try to slow their heartbeat down. His advice to us was do the same thing. There's so much that's out of your control. The things that are in your control, those very few things, do them well. Be thoughtful about them. Teach, preach, pastor, right? This was his word to us. The second was slow. Use this pandemic that has us out of the hectic rat race. We are necessarily less busy. Don't bristle against that. Use it. Let this be a season where you slow down. Then the third word was big. What did he mean by that? Well, he said this is the time to think the biggest thoughts about God. This is the time to probe deep mysteries, to explore, to study things like God's omniscience, His omnipotence, His providence, His sovereignty, His love. He said the reason why this is important is that if you can fill your mind with God, this big picture, comprehensive cosmic picture of God, then it will give you actually perspective on the pandemic. God will be bigger than the pandemic. And I thought this is a great word, so that when I find here Psalm 29, it's doing that very work of that last thing: go big. Let me read it to you, and just let the evocative language capture your imagination, because this is what the psalmist is trying to do. He's painting a picture. Ascribe to the Lord, you heavenly beings. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due His name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of His holiness. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The glory of the God of glory thunders. The Lord thunders over the mighty waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is majestic. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. The Lord breaks in pieces the cedars of Lebanon. He makes Lebanon leap like a calf, Syrian like a young wild ox. The voice of the Lord strikes with flashes of lightning. The voice of the Lord shakes the desert. The Lord shakes the desert of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord twists the oaks and strips the forest bare, and in His temple all cry glory. The Lord sits enthroned over the flood. The Lord is enthroned as King forever. The Lord gives strength to His people. The Lord blesses His people with peace. I don't know. Sometimes these are hard to read, but maybe if in the context that I've already given you, the framing I've given you, it's easier. God is powerful. He is over all of nature. He is over all creation. God's will is preeminent. He allows, in this place and time, those to resist His will, but His will ultimately will be done. We are to see God in His glory and His goodness and His power with the angels. We're to ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. We're to see the splendor of His holiness. This is helpful to me because I think in these days we feel powerless, and we feel fearful, and we feel anxious, right? I don't know why I'm pronouncing those words in those way, but a little levity. The idea, though, is one of my core convictions is the sovereignty of God and His sufficiency, that I'm held in His hands, and as long as I'm in His hands, all is well. In fact, I'm convinced that God is sufficient even in this moment for me. So this helps me paint this picture of the big God. And I love the conclusion of this. The Lord sits enthroned over the flood. He's enthroned as king forever. The Lord gives strength to his people. The Lord blesses his people with peace. God is for us. He is with us. As St. Patrick taught us to pray, he's before us, behind us, above us, below us, on our left and on our right. On this Wednesday and throughout this week, let yourself have big thoughts about God and place yourself in his good hands. Grace and peace to you.